Hello, everybody. Very nice to meet you all. Welcome to another podcast. I'm Sanjeev, and we do many podcasts like this, and we invite very special people to have a beautiful conversation, and they are ready to share their life experiences, lot of things, so we can learn so much from them just by even listening. So I have even a couple of questions to this wonderful lady. Her name is Kay Downey. She's a spiritual led guide helping you to remove the weight from, yeah, like I think the negative. We'll ask actually what she does. So I surely think like it's some process like we help people to like come out of their negative traumas and all these problematic situations. So I would be most honored to welcome Kay Downey. So, Kay Downey, would you like to briefly introduce yourself, and we'll dig into your into your life and what you do and those kind of things. So,
Okay, Sanji. Yeah, I'm Kay Downey. Just call me Kay. My business is Kay Downey as well. You'll find on my website it's Kay Downey, the Soul Mechanic. I dropped the Soul Mechanic because that was hiding behind an alter ego that I don't need to do anymore. What do I do? Sanji did touch on it. I remove those negative blocks for you, and I do it in several ways. I read the tarot and soul cards, which is where my journey began. Um, but I soon expanded from that and learned to use a non-intrusive therapy called Kinetic Shift. And Kinetic Shift is all about using your imagination. It's all about getting rid of the core of depression, anxiety, PTSD. It can help you at the core to manage the pain of fibromyalgia and arthritis. I've also been told that it can help with sleep apnea. I only know those last three things because people have told me that. I trained in it to help people with depression because that's where my journey really began, was with depression and me kicking it into touch. The tarot cards helped, the kinetic shift helped, and now I'm trying to help other people because that was my promise when my depression left me, was to help as many people as I can. So I do this as well by I'm going to relaunch an online hub. I've had it before, and I feel that there's a need for it again. It's where people like me, when I kicked that depression in touch, um, need that extra helping hand. Because very often we leave our therapist, our coach, our counsellor, no matter who or what we've been to get ourselves on track, we leave it too early. And then we're a bit wary of going back and saying, look, I left you and I shouldn't have. Can I come back? We don't like to do that. So I'm going to open up this online hub, and I don't care who you've worked with, whether it's me or somebody else. I'm there to help you to go towards those ladders of success, if you like, and away from those snakes of doubt. Now, I'm not going to keep you right away from those snakes of doubt, because sometimes we do need to revisit. We need to slide down those slippery snakes on the snakes and ladder board of life, because we need to revisit and take a lesson from that time. So that's basically what I do. So back to you, Sandy.
Oh, okay, thank you so much. So you're based in UK, right?
Yes,
And you
I'm
do
based in
work. Yeah, please.
I'm based in Southwest Wales,
Uh-huh.
which is one of the countries that make up the UK. I'm right down on the coast, but I'm not going to be here for much longer. I'm going in search of the sunshine. I'm actually moving to Spain,
Oh,
which should be there this time next year, hopefully. We've already bought a house, and we do spend some time there now and some time in the UK. But it doesn't matter where I am, Spain or Wales. My services are there for people to take advantage of.
so okay, you work online also?
I only work online.
Okay.
I don't do face to face. I used to do face to face, and then we had that horrible pandemic, didn't we?
Pandemic. Yeah.
Um, so everything went online, and I found it was easier to do it online. Apart from if I do an event, and for those who are listening in the UK, there is an event coming up in Carmarthen on the 17th and 18th of May, where I will be doing tarot and soul card readings. And I'll also be holding a workshop about kinetic shift. So that's one of the things that I've got coming up in the future, Sanji. So, you know, I keep myself very busy, whether it's moving house or whether it's going about doing different things. The other thing, as I said, I'm trying to relaunch an online hub. I'm also going to be holding a tarot card reading workshop in a couple of weeks' time, the 25th of April. I hold these 4 times a year, and it's to take away the myth that surrounds the tarot, because people seem to think that tarot is wicked, and it's not. It's a tool. It's the same as people thinking that AI is wicked. Yes, it is wicked if you want to use it that way. It's the same as my coach said this morning. A screwdriver in the wrong hands is a dangerous weapon. So I want to, teach people that it's not what they think it is, and show them how I read the cards, and then they can start reading them for themselves.
Oh, okay. So would you like to elaborate a little bit on the topics you actually do to help people, or tarot card reading and the other, please?
I read the tarot and I read the soul cards. The difference between the two sets of cards is, with the tarot, you get a little booklet, so you can cheat if you want. You can look up and see what somebody else thought that card meant. I don't do that. I read from the heart. I read intuitively. But there's other cards I use, which are soul cards. There's 2 decks of those, and I can't remember who created them because I stupidly threw the boxes away and put them into pouches. But there's a blue deck and there's like a red burgundy coloured deck, and they're just pieces of art with no preconceived ideas about. So if people have a soul card reading with me, I only ever let them choose one soul card, or I choose that one soul card for them. But I'll tell you how I choose the cards in a moment. And with those soul cards, I let them choose 6 angel cards, which gives them a spiritual challenge with a healing and blessing card, and a physical challenge with a healing and blessing card. And then I'll build up for the length of time that they booked to have a reading for, telling them a story. It's like opening a book. That's all the tarot and soul cards and oracle cards and angel cards are. It's a book that opens up with an introduction, if you like, with the angel and oracle cards, and with an introduction that I feel with the tarot and soul. And I tell you a story. I tell you a past. I tell you about now. But I don't predict the future, Sanji, because if we were meant to know the future, we'd know the future. We're not meant to know the future. But we are meant to know the past because we've lived there, we've done that. So that's set in stone. And we do know about now because we're living it now. But it's surprising the number of people that when they come for a reading, only want to know what's going to happen in the future. Are they going to meet Mr. Right? Are they going to have a baby? Are they going to do this? Are they going to do that? And my answer is, you'll have to wait and see. But we can see what you might have coming up in the future. And that will be depending upon whether you take the advice of the cards or you go about your own way and change it. It's entirely up to you. The only person that chooses your future is you. So that's how I read the cards. It's to get people to think for themselves, because this day and age, most people are looking in the outside world for the answers to all those questions when we've got them inside us all the time. Kinetic shift is an energy shifting therapy, and it's non-intrusive. Because when I went, I had counselling in the past, and when I went, they wanted me to go over my story over and over and over it until I'd got it out of my system. Kinetic shift doesn't work that way. I don't need to know the story. All I need to know is that you've had a feeling, and you've had this feeling for however long. And I ask you to go back to that time when you first were conscious, or the feeling first started, whichever you can remember. I ask you to go back there and use your imagination and be in that moment, how you felt at that very time, and to give that feeling a colour. Once you've got the colour, you can come back to me and be in the moment here and now. And we talk about the colour, the shade of the colour, the depth of the colour, everything that we can think of about the colour.
Mhm.
And then I'll ask you on, on a level of 0 to 10, 10 being the strongest, how strong that color is to you. And then I'll send you off inside your body to
Mhm.
find the color inside your body. So it's a bit of imagination again. You can imagine yourself in a little spaceship going around inside your body, finding the color, see where it's hiding, come back and tell me. And then if possible, if that client can reach that color, they will rub the surface where that color is hiding and feel either a ribbon or a piece of string that they then physically catch hold of. And they pull and they keep pulling until they feel that that color has gone. Now, I don't take their word for it. I send them back around their body to find out if that color has gone. Because sometimes that color has gone, but there's another color lurking behind it. And we keep on pulling out those colors until they've all gone.
Mhm.
Once they've all gone, I send them back then to a happy time. And it doesn't matter who we are, whether we've got PTSD, anxiety, or depression, we have had a happy time.
Sure.
And again, they go back there, they live in that moment, they give that a colour. Again, we talk about the colour once they got it, but this time we're going to pump them full of that colour. And we're going to anchor it to their mobile phone, to their wedding ring, to a necklace that they might wear. It'll be anchored.
Thank you.
And then they can go about their life with a clean slate again. It's a fresh, every day we get a clean slate, a fresh piece of paper, whatever, whether we want to draw on it, whether we want to write on it. However we want to record our lives, we can do that. And, once that anxiety, depression, and PTSD is gone, we've got a completely new art book, if you like. We're starting a new book, not just a new chapter, we're starting a new book. We're going back onto the path that we should have been on, that we were born to be on. But it's accepting that we're worthy of that. And that's why I'm opening up the hub to help people to understand that we are all worthy. There's nobody in this world who isn't worthy of. It's just that they've been brought up to believe that they're not.
So, okay,
So,
why specifically colors? I used to have heard because we also do like deep meditations and these kind of things. Because even in the elements, there is like 4 elements as well as color is one. And then in the chakras also there are specific colors. So why do you pick specifically colors?
I didn't pick to use colors. I trained to use kinetic shift. It was actually created by a man called Carl Smith. That's Carl with a K. And Carl himself had PTSD. And he found different things helped. He found that color therapy helped, obviously, because he's using color. Shamanic healing helped him. Hypnotherapy helped him. NLP helped him. Different types of therapies helped him, but they only helped him. None of them actually kicked his PTSD into touch. So he put them all together.
Oh, wow.
All the bits that he found helped, he put all together and created kinetic shift, which is why I use the colors, because that is how it's taught to be used. Like you, I believe in meditation. I believe in the different chakras. I believe in, colors can mean different things to different people. It's the same as the tarot card. You and I could have a tarot card in front of us, exactly the same card, but it would mean one thing to you and it would mean something else to me. The core probably would be the same, but we would interpret it in a different manner. And that's what life is all about, isn't it? If you and I were the same, then this conversation would be very boring. But we are the same. We have the same beliefs, but we're different. We look at it through different eyes, if you like, through different feelings. Through, lots of people say we need to work from the heart. I don't believe that. I believe we need to work from the gut. I believe that the mind and the heart can be manipulated. But the gut can't be, because nobody wants to go delving into our guts at all. So yeah, I like people to work from the gut, from that real deep down feeling within themselves. That's where they find the answers to their questions, the guidance to their daily lives. But the thing that they have to remember is only guidance. There's nobody that can tell them what to do. Even that guidance from that deep core within, that spirituality, that core to the source, if you like, even that can't tell us what to do, because we have freedom of choice. We were born with that freedom to choose how we want to live our lives.
Mhm.
So, people can invest in readings, they can invest in whatever they want, but unless they embrace what they're learning and how to use those things, then they're wasting their money.
Mhm. Oh, thank you.
I don't know what your thoughts are on
No,
that, but
it's wonderful.
that's mine.
Uh-huh.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I think you answered one of our questions, like what are you up to these days, or like what have you been doing, no? So yeah,
I
about
think so.
the hub as well as, no, like you're traveling, and then you'll be available online and all, no?
Yes,
So
I am.
yeah, how was your like life journey, if you can?
My life journey, from anybody looking at in on my life, was great. But I was born to my parents in way back in 1954. My dad was in the RAF. He'd been called up for national service, and so there was just me and my mum at home. So we built up quite a bond, my mum and I. She wasn't just my mum; she was my best friend as well. Then my dad come home, and my dad was quite a young man. My dad was only 22 when I was born. And he didn't know really how to be a dad, but he did his best. And that is one thing I will emphasize. My dad did his best. He didn't set out to cause me to have depression. My dad set out to make me the best person that he could make me. But he couldn't make me be anything really. That was down to me. But he kept moving my goalposts. So I became very insular, very aggressive, very depressed. And at the age of 18, my father and I had an argument because I was going to meet a gentleman who my father wouldn't have called a gentleman, and told me that if I was going to meet him, not to come home. So I didn't go home.
Oh, really?
I married the man instead.
Oh.
And my parents didn't like him, and they worked on us, and we ended up in divorce. I went home to live for a little while. It didn't work out because my dad was still trying to make me the better person. So I got married again on the rebound, if you like. And whilst I was married for the second time, I met my first husband, and we were going to go back together. But my husband drowned. My first husband drowned. So I decided that I'd stay with my second husband and have a baby. My husband didn't really want the baby, so I became a battered wife. So I not only had now a baby that I was responsible for, I had depression still. And if my baby cried, I got clout. So once my son was of school age and I was told that the problems he was having in school were caused by his father, I divorced him, thinking it would be just me and my son. That was 36 years ago, 37 years ago. But I was wrong, because I met another gentleman. My son's name is Ian. My husband's name now is also Ian. And I met my husband 36 years ago, around about now. We've been married 36 years come December, and we've got a 35-year-old granddaughter, 35-year-old daughter. We have also got a grandson and granddaughter by my son. My son will be 45 in about 3 weeks' time. So, life became different when I married my husband. He was very different to the first two gentlemen that I'd married. And he didn't know I had depression because I hid it. I'd hidden it really well. He knew my son had problems, but he didn't know about mine until I had my beautiful daughter. And all I wanted to do was shut myself under the stairs. So I agreed to go to see my doctor, who sent me to a counsellor who was absolutely wonderful. And I lived a near normal life for 4 years. When my daughter started school, my son's schooling, authority decided that my son's problems were caused by me and I needed to go and see a counsellor, which I didn't hesitate. I thought, yes, this is going to help him. It helped me so much. I will go. But I forgot this new counsellor had an agenda, and he opened up all the boxes that the previous counsellor had tied up with pink ribbons, to the point I was threatening to take my own life.
Oh.
Luckily for me, there was a lady at the school gates where I was threatening this that was also a counsellor. She was a counsellor for drug addicts. And she said to me, for goodness sake, Kay, stop going to see this counsellor, because one day you're not going to threaten to take your own life. We're going to hear that you've done it. So I stopped. So my daughter was 4 years old and I was back to square one. I was as depressed as I was when I was 18. So I lived like that. I took my husband to hell and back on more than one occasion. And then 23 years ago, my father-in-law died. And my mum said to me, Kay, you and Ian have always said you're going to retire to Wales. Now, we're only in our 40s. We're not anywhere near retirement age, 40s, 50s. And she said, you need to go now. And I said, Mum, he is arranging his dad's funeral. I can't tell him that we need to move to Wales. She said, I'm telling you, you need to tell him. So I came over for the funeral and I spoke to my brother-in-law. And he said, yes, your mum's right. Tell him, take his mind off of everything else. The rest is history. I moved over here 23 years ago. My husband moved over about 10 years ago. We lived separate lives for a little while. He lived in Bristol. I lived in Buryport. And we just met up on weekends and holidays. Ideal marriage. Well, it was an ideal marriage for us because I still had my depression. And I had a 13-year-old daughter, which didn't mix very well. Depression and teenagers don't really mix together. But I was fortunate enough to meet a lady who took me on my spiritual journey, or started me on that spiritual pathway. And I sat with a medium, and she asked me to learn the tarot. I'd signed up for her workshop, and I went home and I threw my cards in the bin. I wasn't ready then. But a bit later on, I started to tell this medium I started to dream about cats, and I was petrified of cats. I'd been scratched as a baby, and cats were a no-go for me. Anyway, she said, I think you need to go and get a cat, Kay. And I said, I can't do that. What if I can't feed it? She said, I'm telling you, you need to go and get one. Well, the first cat that I dreamt about was a tabby cat. And then I started dreaming about a ginger cat. My husband agreed that we would have a cat. And the first cat that we had was a silver tortoiseshell cat, which was a mixture of the two. But my husband had wanted a tomcat, and this was a she. Although she'd been doctored, she wasn't going to have kittens or anything. But a few weeks later, I seen a tomcat, a kitten, a ginger kitten. Wow. And my husband said no first, and then he agreed we could have this kitten as well. We've still got that kitten. He's now 16 years old. Wow. But the first one, unfortunately, she only stayed with us for 7 years, and she died. She'd been thrown from the car as a kitten, and a blood clot had finally hit her brain. And she's no longer with us. But we have got another cat who looks a little bit like Red Riding Hood, because she's got like a cape of ginger and a white belly. But she doesn't come into the house. She likes to be outside. She's independent. Yes, but she's a loving cat, but on her terms only. So I got my cats, and the medium that I was with actually took us to an academy, the circle that I was in, to an academy to show us how mediums would work on a platform. And on their notice board, there was a sign, self-awareness course. And something inside me told me I needed to do that self-awareness course. In fact, there was 4 of us was going to do this self-awareness course. 3 of us got talked out of it. But I knew that I had to do it. So I did. I went and done it. And at the end of the self-awareness course, the guy whose academy it was asked me, was I going to stay with him, or was I going to stay with the other medium? And he said, I've got no qualms. You can stay with me and her. But from what you've been telling me, she's not willing for that. So I decided I'd stay with the academy. But But before the end of the self-awareness course, I met a lady who was going to do a tarot card reading workshop, just like I do these days. And the girl that started me off on the pathway had said she was interested in learning the tarot. But that was Spirit's way of getting me to that tarot card workshop, because my friend reads the runes. She doesn't read the tarot cards. And once I started reading the tarot cards for other people, I was not only helping them, I was helping myself too. To the point that one of my friends said, "Okay, you're coaching when you're reading the tarot. You're not really reading the tarot cards, you're coaching. Go and get qualified." So I said, "Okay, how do I do that?" So I went and done what she suggested, which was NLP. And I didn't like it. It did not sit comfortably with me at all. Nothing wrong with NLP. Nothing wrong with it at all. It just did not sit with me. And the tarot cards. And the lady who was teaching me said, "Okay, I've got just the thing for you. And I'm sure you're going to love it." Well, I talked about the price because I just spent out a heck of a lot of money on something I didn't like. And it compared to what I'd spent, it was like the 10th of the cost. So I went and done it, and that was Kinetic Shift. Now, I'd done self-awareness, which is self-coaching, self-counseling, whatever you want to label it. I'd done NLP, which again is sorting out your mindset. And I thought I was cured for my depression, but I was wrong. I went along to this workshop on a Saturday, and I said to my tutor, "Well, what are you going to work on? I've done the NLP course with you, so my depression has gone. So what we're going to work on today?" And she said, "We're going to work on your arthritis." So I thought, okay, but that's physical. How are you going to do anything with that? Well, I can honestly say that without that Saturday, my arthritis, I would probably be either having a new hip by now or in a wheelchair. But the thing that was most noticeable was my depression had gone. There was still depression there when I started that workshop, unaware that I was really unaware of. But at the end of that session, I knew it had gone. I was a different person. Now, my class was up in Cardiff, which is about 50 miles from where I live. And on the drive home, I voiced the promise to the universe that whilst I was living and breathing and capable of, I would help as many people as I could to not only kick depression into touch, but PTSD and anxiety as well. And by working with my clients, I have found that I can help them with their arthritis. I can help them with their fibromyalgia. And one of my clients actually told me I helped her with sleep apnea as well. So it's a very powerful energy shifting therapy. But actually, there's only one person that's doing the healing, and it isn't me. It's the person themselves. We have to embrace what we want. We have to have full intention of what we want. And if we're not willing to embrace who we are and to accept who we are here and now, then we're never going to change. And that's a shame. Because if we could, and I'm sure you would be the same, Sanji, if we could, we'd change the whole world into being peace, kind, and love. But we can't do that until each individual decides that's what they want for themselves.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing what happened in your life. Could you please tell about a little bit of your childhood, if you like to share a little bit more further, Yes, please.
Well, my childhood, as I said, from an outside point of view, was great. I lived in a city called Bath in England, is where I was born and brought up. I even had my son there. Well, I lived in Bristol when I had my son, which is the next city over. But Bath is a beautiful Georgian city, Roman city. It's got beautiful architecture. It's got a couple of massive parks, and I was fortunate enough to actually live by that park. And if you ever see an advert for Bath, they show the Royal Crescent. And when I was married to my first husband, I actually lived in that crescent. So Bath has got lots of mixed feelings for me, because it was in Bath that my first husband took his life. I will say he didn't do it intentionally. He took up a dare and dived into a river.
Oh.
And unbeknownst to everybody, including himself, he had a hole in the heart. So the cold water and that hole in the heart didn't mix, and he died. But it's got mixed feelings for me. It was a happy time. There was happy times. I mean, I didn't realize I was depressed as a child. Looking back on my life to talk about my life, that's when I realized, yes, there was underlying currents there. My dad did lots of things for me. He taught me to tie my laces. He taught me to tell the time. He would listen to me read my storybooks, even though he used to make fun of the way that I would sometimes pronounce the words. He tried his best to be a good dad. And when I confronted him, as I got aware of what was going on, that he'd been a bully, he said, "I'm not a bully." And I said, "I'm sorry to tell you, Dad, yes, you were. And you still are, because my husband has actually witnessed him try to bully me since we've been together. And he also has tried to bully my daughter. But there's a reason behind it, because my grandfather took a very much a back seat in my father's upbringing. In fact, my grandfather went into the army during World War II when he was too old really to go, but he went to do his bit, and left my grandmother with the children. So my grandmother was their mother and father, and I've known all my life my grandmother doesn't like little girls, or didn't like little girls. Her favourite grandchildren was the grandsons. I was the eldest grandchild, but it was the grandsons that were the favourite. And it turns out my father prefers boys to girls, and I disappointed him really, because I came along and I was a little girl. But having said that, I didn't want for anything apart from my dad's love, but he was loving me in the only way that he knew how to. I can accept today that my dad loves me, and it's not a very nice thing to say, but I don't love him. I accept him as my dad, and I respect him as my dad. But that chance of that love bond building like that was between me and my mum has gone. I will not see my dad suffer. He's still alive. He's 92. He'll be 93 this year. And unfortunately, he's now got dementia. My mum's been dead 17 years nearly. And since the day she died, my dad hasn't wanted to live. So although I don't want him to die, from his point of view, the sooner the better. I don't want him to die, because I would hate to wish that upon him. I did wish it on him once. You're having thunderstorms and rain at the moment. Back in the 60s, when I was still in school, we had floods, and we were living halfway up quite a steep hill, and the floods came down. And my dad said, he was working nights, and he said that it's not a fit night to send a dog out in. And I said, "Oh, go on, go out there, Dad, and drown." And he came home the next morning to tell us that he had just crossed over a bridge over the river. And as he had got over it, the bridge got swept away. So it is very, I was taught very harshly, be careful what you wish for. So I don't wish my dad dead. But if he wants to go, then I'm not going to stand in his way. So yes, my childhood was happy. I mean, I listen to my daughter now. My daughter's, as I said, she's 34, and to listen to her, my husband and I were terrible parents. To listen to my son, we're the best thing since sliced bread. We brought them both up. All right, one was 8 years old before, and one was from a baby, but they're chalk and cheese. One is laid back, one is very much in your face, and my daughter is the latter. But I think a lot of that is because, as my dad tried to make me the better person, I tried to make her stronger than what I was, because I wasn't strong enough to stand in my own power and stand up to my dad. I let him bully me. I allowed him to bully me. It's the same as anything else. Whether we do it consciously or unconsciously, whatever happens to us, we are allowing it to happen. And it was, as I said, I was in my 50s really before I had that courage to say to my dad, "You're a bully." But would I change my life? No, Sanji, I wouldn't change my life. I wouldn't change one bit of my life. If I had to choose to change one bit, it would be my second husband. I wouldn't be hit. But if I changed that part of my life, I wouldn't have my son and I wouldn't have my beautiful grandchildren. So, no, I wouldn't change my life, because that life, that journey has given me experiences that I can talk to people about when I'm helping them with their journey. Because if I can, at the age of 50, turn my life around to a life that's full of sunshine, even when it's raining, so can everybody else.
Sure. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Yesterday also we had a podcast, and we also talking people who went through many difficulties in life. They become the best coaches, teachers. This because they've been through it and they came out of it. Huh? So actually,
Yes,
you told
definitely.
yeah.
Absolutely. We get these counselors, we get the coaches, we get the therapies. They come out of the workshops, the courses, whatever they've done to qualify, but they haven't got any experience. They're in their early 20s. They've got no life experience, as though they think they have. My daughter thinks she knows everything. I've got news for her. She's got a lot to learn yet. But those people like myself who have gone into those therapies or to train to be coaches or counselors, with the experience that I've had or they've had, it's not just a textbook way of doing something. There's that human element to it as well, or should I say that being human element to it, because we've got that experience stored within our core, and we can talk to our clients in a way that doesn't upset us, because that was then, not now. So it's just something that's written in history, in our own history, that we can draw on and say, well, this is how it was for me, and this is how I was able to cope with it. I'm not saying that that's going to work for you, but it's something worth thinking about, or we could possibly try this or that. And it makes it more personal, more bespoke. It's not a textbook. Life's not a textbook, unfortunately.
It's okay.
It's just a book.
You said many things, obstacles you faced in life. What? Just I'm not trying to put salt on any wounds or anything like that or anything. So I definitely believe like you came out of all these. I'll ask that in the next question. So as a child or teenager or thing, you talked about bullying, depression, no, many stages. So what do you think like was the biggest obstacles in your childhood and until now?
The biggest obstacle in my life, I think, was husband number 2, other than my dad, because he was telling me he wanted certain things, and then when those things happened, because he didn't tell me he didn't want a baby until after we'd had my son, and he didn't tell me then. He told my mum when my son was 18 months old. She was looking after him for us to move house, and he told us she could keep him. She didn't tell me that until the divorce. But had she, my son's life could have been so much different. But that man also, with my son in my car, tried to run me off the road. He tried to kill me. And my son was with me. So if I had died, probably my son would have as well. So that was, I think, the biggest thing that I had to overcome, because I had to learn to accept what he had done, and I found that very, very difficult. He actually moved from the town where we were living to another town in England, and I wouldn't drive through that town, Sanju, because I was scared to drive through that town because I thought I would, if I seen him walking, I would probably run him over. It took me many, many years to come to terms with the fact that it wasn't my time to die, and somebody, I believe it was, from what I've been told, it was my grandmother, helped me to escape him, and I left him in the arms of some police officers. The hardest thing, I think, was to not put his dad on his biological father on a pedestal, but not to put my son against his father either. At the end of the day, my son was a product of both myself and my second husband. My son will tell you he's only got one dad, and that is my husband, because it was my husband that brought him up. It was my husband that gave him values. Unfortunately, when I was transitioning into being who I am today, my son decided to take it upon himself and walk out of my life for 10 years. That was hard. That was hard, but he did, he'd walked out of my life, but I hadn't walked out of his. I talked about him every day. The sad part for me, he met up with his biological father and changed his name back to his biological father's name, which was an insult to my husband. And it's something that my daughter can't forgive him for. Obviously, I hope in time she will. She is at least polite to him. She does talk to him. But she said that was the lid on all the harm that he had caused me. Because there was problems with him with that he obviously he couldn't help. It was an illness, but he caused me quite a few problems. And she said, I can't forgive him. That was the final nail in the coffin, if you like. But he did come back into my life 10 years later with a 2.5-year-old little boy. That little boy will be 9 this year. And he's also now got a little sister who's just gone 4. So, things weren't good. If you've seen my son and I together, you'd never know that we hadn't spoken for 10 years. Obviously, when we're talking, we have to be careful because there's a 10-year gap, and you forget that people aren't around, and we've got to think, did they know about that, or am I telling them something new? But yes, things are good between my son and myself and my husband. We forgave him for changing his name. It hurt, but we forgave him. At the end of the day, that was the name he was born with, and if that's the name he wants to carry on his life with, it's up to him. He can't really change it now. He's got 2 beautiful children, and they've got the same surname as him. So, and it's up to him to explain to them why he's got a different name to their grandmother. So yeah, my life went from being okay. My life was okay. My life was reasonably happy, or so I thought, until I started to investigate. When did my depression start? And it started at the age of 3.
3?
3.
Oh.
So for 47 years, I suffered with depression. There were times I didn't have depression. There was times that depression overwhelmed me so much that I could have thanked my second husband if he had killed me, because I didn't want to be here. But I'm really glad that the universe decided that my life was for living, and now I can use the past life to help people with their lives.
So, Kay, please tell me, how did you figure it out? Like when you started at 3?
I reviewed my life. I went back through each year of my life to see how I could make up a talk, a bit like what I've just done on here. I was networking, and I was going to be a spotlight speaker, and I needed to talk about my depression and when it started and my journey. And that's when I figured out when my depression started. It was when my dad came back into my mum's life. and into my life and changed the dynamics really, because my mum obviously was in love with my dad. And yes, when my dad wasn't around, I was the center of her universe. But when my dad was around, I had to share him, which I found that difficult, of course. And my dad made it very clear that she was his wife first and my mum second. And yes, it was difficult, but I got there. And I'm glad. I'm glad of all the teachings that my life's journey gave me, and I'm glad to share them with other people.
Oh, wonderful. So yeah, these are not easy situations to face for anybody, no? And
No, they're not. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's. I think the hardest thing is to accept that although my dad was the instigator, I was the receiver, and I allowed myself to receive what he was doing to me. Okay, at the age of 3, I didn't have much choice. At the age of 18, I did in some ways kick back because I didn't go home when he told me not to. But I then went back. I included them in my life, which if I hadn't, I may well still have been married to my first husband. He may well still have been alive, and we would have been married. I was 18 and I'm 71 this year, so I'll let you do the sums. A long time, a very long time. But it wasn't to be. It wasn't to be. That was to be a lesson for me that you have to learn to love yourself, to really keep hold of that person or those people that you truly love. And it is, people can love you when you don't love yourself, but it's not the same kind of love as when you actually accept who you are, love who you are. As I said earlier, I've taken my husband to hell and back on many occasions. But now, when we first got married, we said it was like being on a crest of a wave. And that wave has gone down in many cases, right down into the dip. But we're back upon that crest of the wave because our love has matured. We've found things out about each other. I think out of my daughter's friends' families, we're the only couple that are still married. And there's not many people this day and age that can say they've been married 36 years. And it might sound strange, but in 1972, I tried to join the RAF. And in 1972, my husband actually joined the RAF. So we could have met way back then, way before my son was born, but it wasn't meant to be. We were meant to put the pieces back together for my son, that he could live a reasonably normal life and to have a beautiful daughter who ain't afraid of anybody.
Yeah. So you came out of many of these things. So there must be plenty of successes or success stories you had. What do you consider what you mentioned? All these are also success stories by themselves, no? You came out of different situations. What do you consider the best success stories in your life?
The best success story is obviously meeting my husband, because he stood by me through thick and thin. And as I said, he definitely went to hell and back with me. Obviously, my children are also a great part of my journey. And my cats are my medals. My cats are my medals of survival. Because I was a baby in the pram when a black and white cat jumped up because they could smell the milk and scratched me right the way through my eyes, right the way through the middle of my face. The cat, unfortunately, didn't live very long after that. The shopkeeper had it put down, much against my mother's wishes. But he said I was lucky. The next time, the baby might not be so lucky. So my cats are my treasure, are my medals, because I was frightened of them to the point that a cat could be walking down a blind alley and I could sense that cat to come in and I would cross the road. So, yes, my cats are definitely my medals. And I would say in my work, those two people that are still walking this earth plane, when they had decided that they'd had enough and was going to jump off, um, that's also a great success story for me.
Mhm. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, uh, you told me like you went to this the sessions and then this course. Uh, so, if somebody asks like, what made you select the path you're on now, which what would it be?
It was actually I actually came to Wales and I got the sack after 13 months of doing the first job that I got when I got over here. I got sacked on the spot because I actually stood up for myself and got sacked. And I went to work for the local council. And in the local council, there was a lady who I'm still friends with today, who went to a spiritualist church.
Mhm.
And she said to me, Kay, why don't you come to the spiritualist church with me? And I said, Sue, I've been to churches. I've been there. I've done it. I got the T-shirt. It ain't helped me, and I ain't going again.
Mhm.
And she said, but it's not a church like you've been to before, Kay. This is a spiritual church.
Mhm.
And I'm asking you to come to break the chain of you coming to work and going home and arguing with your daughter, coming to work, going home and arguing with your daughter. So please, just let's break that chain.
Mhm.
So I went, and it was there that I met Audrey, the medium that I sat with.
Oh.
And Audrey was running a circle, a meditation circle, a development circle. And I decided that, yeah, I could go to church once a week. That was only one night a week. But I could go to Audrey's circle as well. That was the second night a week. So I broke two chains of that chain of arguing with my daughter. And it was obviously meant to be because I felt comfortable. At one stage, I didn't listen to what Audrey told us to do in meditation. I actually levitated from my chair.
Mhm.
So I had proof that the things that she was talking about were real. When we went to the academy, I actually went to a service there as well. And that's where I found out that it was my grandmother that was helping me when my second husband tried to run me off the road. I'd always thought it was my granddad on my dad's side, and it turned out it was my grandmother on my mum's side. And the guy who told me all this didn't know anything about me being in that situation. So everything was being given to me on a plate, if you like. This is how it is, and this is how you're going to be working, Kay. And it was Sue who was telling me all these things, that this is how you're going to do that, Kay. I don't know why you're still going there, Kay, because you can do that. Why don't you do that, Kay? And now she says to me, see, I told you all those years ago, Kay, you'd be doing this and you'd be doing that. And you are. And it's true. And I think it got to a point that I was working with the guy in the academy. I was still being trained by him to an extent, but I was working with him on platform to the point that at one point I found out he was pulling on my energy to boost his own energy, to get him to give him the energy to work on the platform. And he didn't deny it when he was asked.
Really?
No, he admitted it. And I thought, well, it's time to cut loose again. So I started my own face-to-face circle. And then the pandemic stopped that. So I now run one online. It's not the same online as it is face to face, but it works. And Spirit have joined me there on a few occasions, and it's been quite fun. One time it was all white noise, and I couldn't be heard. I had to actually leave the Zoom because nobody could hear what I was saying. So we had to close the Zoom early. So I know I've got Spirit's blessing with my group. I've now got a coach who she coaches me online, but occasionally I do see her face to face. And she's a shaman, and she does what she calls the big one. So I'm off on. It's a 13-month retreat, if you like, and we go every 3 months for a weekend out in the wilds, sleeping in yurts. Only if you choose, you can go and stay in a hotel. I'm staying in a hotel this time. I went in October, and my life took on a new meaning again. As I said, I've got arthritis. I use a rollator, or I used a rollator every day in the house as well as outside. I use sticks in the house now. The rollator outside sometimes. I missed January because I had gone off on holiday, but it's coming up again. Not this weekend, coming the following weekend. I'm off on it again, and then I've got another one in July and another one in October. I don't know whether I will be going to the October one, whether I'll still be in the UK or whether I'll be in Spain. But we all need somebody. We all need somebody. It doesn't matter if you're a coach. It doesn't matter who you are. We need somebody who understands us, who believes in us, because we need that belief of another person when that doubt creeps in on ourselves. And it does creep in. It doesn't matter who we are. That doubt will creep in on us. And it's nice to have somebody in your corner. So it doesn't matter whether we're a coach, a counsellor, a therapist, a mentor, whatever. It's nice to have a group of people, or at least one person in your corner. So I'm lucky enough to have two in my corner, because Taz's wife is also a shaman and does the workshops and things with her. So yeah, life has really taken me to the heights and it's taken me to the lows. But I'm glad to say I'm somewhere in between the two now. And as long as I can stay in the middle, I'm happy. The one thing that I do know is, whilst I charge to help people, that's not what I'm in the business for. I'm in the business to help people. And if I believe that they cannot afford to have my help, then there will be ways that I will work around it so that they will get my help. Because life is to be lived, not endured.
So within your career and like coaching or helping people, what are the best experiences you had?
I think the best ones are seeing people turn their lives around. It's people come into my Zoom now. They used to come into my room, but they come into my Zoom now with the world's worries on their shoulders, shall we say.
Sure.
Their smile is often a frown, or very much a painted on smile, but it's seeing that smile light up their eyes when they've had that reading, when they've started to piece together the jigsaw puzzle that's their own lives, or have had that block removed and know that they can now breathe. It's them understanding that they don't have to carry the world's worries on their shoulders. The only burdens they have to carry is those that they've created for themselves, and they don't have to carry them indefinitely. We all have our burdens to carry. We all have our ups and we all have our downs, and it's okay to be down. The time that it's not okay is if we stay in that position. We're not going to be happy 24/7. Nobody is happy 24/7. We've all got our crosses to bear, as it were, but it's to see that cross put down and lifted up in a different manner, that it's lighter. They're feeling lighter, they're feeling better, the light in their eyes. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, if all our eyes light up, there'll be no darkness. It'll be just light.
So okay, like how would you say, like from the past and where you are now, and where would you like to take this, or where you are from where you were, and then
I would say I'm in a place that I'm quite comfortable now. I'm as I said earlier, I'm 71 this year. I've got no ambitions. I'm happy where I am. I'm happy in my marriage. I'm happy with my children. And it's taken me all this time to realize, although I can be in their lives, I don't have to be actually in the same country as them. So I'm going to live my life and my husband's life out in the sunshine, growing old together. As I heard on the television the other day, somebody said, that when he married his wife, they married to spend time together. Most of their lives, they'd only spent a couple of hours a day together.
Oh.
They had moved. I think they'd moved to Portugal, but they had decided that they were going to move to the sunshine, and now we're spending 24/7 together. My husband and I spend 24/7 together here in the UK because we're both retired. But why not spend it somewhere where we can enjoy the environment as well? So yeah, we're going to pack our bags and leave the kids behind. Who knows? We might see more of them. They may come over to the sunshine to see us more.
Yeah.
So yeah. So life is happy for me. Life is abundance, if you like. Not in the fact that I got pots and pots of money, but I've got pots and pots of happiness and pots of lessons learned that I can share.
And your coaching and all, where would you like to take it?
Basically where it is now, to a degree. I don't want to be inundated with clients, but I do want as many clients as I can cope with, and I have got room for quite a few at the moment because I've not been actually focusing on the business. I've been focusing on the big move. I'd like at least 10 people to say they'd like to join my hub and to come and work with me in that hub. I'd like, a regular couple of people every month to help put them back on their pathway, because there's so many pathways that we can choose, and they've just chosen the wrong one for now. Once they know they're back on their right pathway, they will know. It's like a train engine, isn't it? They know when they're on the right tracks, and yeah. So life for me is probably as full as it's going to be, but I'm still open for it. I'm open for that new page every day, but I'm not looking for anything. Whereas before, I was looking for something. I was looking to find me, and I found me, and I'm quite happy with me.
So,
I mean, if I told you from that time when my dad came home until I did find me, I never smiled. I never ever smiled, and if people ask me to smile, I purse my lips even tighter. So it's great now that I smile, I laugh, and I enjoy my life.
What would be your ultimate goal?
My ultimate goal,
it could be like many lifespans, even, or anything.
I think my ultimate goal is to know that when I finally draw my last breath, that people will remember me for who I am today, not for that person with that big chip on their shoulder that I was in the earlier days, and that I have helped them to become who they are today. And I've given them the stepping stones that they can use in their leisure to build the lives that they want to build.
Oh, beautiful. So finally, Kay, what kind of advice? Because I remember in the very first part when you're telling you help people, you came out of a lot of things, and especially depression. And could you put a little about it? And then you mentioned people who are lost after counseling, or they had very bad experiences. So one is, I'm asking what would be your advice for people in depression, and the other part related to your practice, which is two questions actually. So and then
my advice to those people who have got depression or anxiety or PTSD, you're not on your own. And just remember, PTSD doesn't always mean that you've been in the military. We are all have had PTSD at some point in our lives, or will have PTSD at some point in our lives. We'll all face a trauma, and there's no stigma associated with depression or anxiety or PTSD. It's an illness in the same way as if you get chickenpox. It's exactly the same. Mental health and physical health are joined together, with three-dimensional, not one-dimensional or two-dimensional. We're mind, body, and soul. So we need to look after the three parts of our being. So if you're feeling depressed, talk to somebody, go to the doctors.
Mhm.
The one thing I would say though, if they suggest you take pills, see if there's another course that you can take other than pills,
Mhm.
because those pills
Good.
are chemicals, and the
Mhm.
chemicals are only masking what's going on in your mind. They're not helping you to flip your mindset. And depression, anxiety, PTSD is a mindset. So we need to flip it. It's a habit. Um, that's why I am who I am today, because I flipped my mindset. I accepted who I was and changed her.
Mhm.
Um, with my business, I suppose I'm in a position where I don't need to know your story. So I'm one of those safer places,
Mhm.
because we don't all want to talk about what's happened in our past. I
Mhm.
know I didn't. I found it very hard that first time I went to a counsellor. It worked. I found the second counsellor very easy, but it didn't work for me. It may well have done if I'd stayed the full course. But that lady was quite right. If there was a chance that I would have driven off the bridge, as I was threatening to do so before that course ended. So
Mhm.
I had to make that decision to walk away from them, because they did have that agenda to prove that it was me that had the issues and not my son. But counselling works for some people because they need to talk about their problems. They need to get it out that way. There
Mhm.
is so many different ways that people can help you. There's EFT, there's NLP, there's counseling, there's coaching, there's mentoring. But the one person that can help you more than anybody is yourself. And
Mhm.
I'm not saying this because I know Sanji does meditation. Meditation is one of the best ways of helping ourselves,
Mhm.
connecting to that breath, connecting to that inner source. And that's why I do what I do, is to encourage you to take that journey within. It's not
Mhm.
scary. It sounds it, but it isn't as scary as it sounds.
Mhm.
And that battle that's going on in there, only you can stop it. Yes, people like Sanjay and myself can help you, but we can't change you. Only you can do that.
Mhm. Beautifully
I
said.
hope that answered that
Yeah, yeah.
question.
Thank you so much. So, okay, thank you so much. It had been a beautiful and brilliant discussion, and no lightning or anything came across.
Good.
Yeah, no disturbance. So, yeah, I'm very grateful, and many will be for sharing your experience, even the most deepest things you like, or more very, how to say, very sensitive things you brought it up. And I think many people are going through these kind of things, but they don't want to open up, or they are keeping them hidden for
Yeah.
maybe decades of time, or suffering because of this, even suicidal.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's beautiful you brought it up. Yeah, any.
Well, I think people need to understand it might not be something that's happened in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
You know, most of us have lived many lifetimes on this earth plane. And sometimes that trauma that we are suffering as being brought through to this lifetime from a previous lifetime. And that's why kinetic shift is such a powerful energy shifter, because we're not asking people to go back to that beginning when it first happened. We're asking them to either go back to that time or when they were first aware of it happening. So it doesn't matter if it happened before they were born, it can still be shifted. We can still get to the core of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is most important, that we need to have that open mind. We are not, well, we are unique, but we are unique in a way that we've lived these lifetimes before. And those people that we meet today, like you and I, Sanjay, we connected through LinkedIn, I know, but we've probably been on a similar pathway before
Sure.
together. So it's that open mindedness, it's that acceptance. We haven't, we can't give a reason for everything that's happening in our lives, because none of us have got the answers to everything. But if we put all of our answers together, then the story begins to unfold and life itself begins to make sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that
Mm.
answers that question too.
Yeah. So we'll definitely put case contact information and everything, and even what she prefers to put up. So you can directly contact her. Be putting it on post as well as the video, and we'll be posting these videos in many places. So hopefully people can reach you and get the help you are like providing, and get their lives how to say, fix their lives or get it cured. So
Yeah.
yeah, and thank you so much, Kay. And
Thank you.
I wish you the very best on the journey, and hopefully we meet again. And
I'm sure we will.
uh, thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
We wish you the very best in life, as well as have a wonderful and a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.